What's up everyone, this is Tranquil Toys with another review. This time I'm taking a look at the new Lazy Monster Oaktown Fairy Elf. This is a 1/10 scale figure. It is 7 inches. It is not 6 inches or in the 1/12 scale. It is 7 inches, so it's not really going to scale with your other 6-inch figures unless you're okay with these figures being taller than those 6-inch figures. I just have to make that clear because I was under the impression that these were going to be 6-inch scale figures, but that's not the case. You can pick these up on 5K Toys. That's where I got them from. I'm not really like the biggest fan of fantasy figures. I'll only buy them if I think they're going to fit next to my Motu figures, Masters of the Universe figures, He-Man figures, whatever. And I was surprised by how good these figures look next to those Motu figures. Just to be clear, these are the warm skin tone versions, not the pale skin tone. Even though the warm skin tone doesn't really look a whole lot different than the pale version, it still looks kind of lifeless. I'll get into that more later. But as far as the introduction is concerned, not much else to say. So let's look at the figures, the accessories. The first thing we got to take a look at is the box. And the box surprised me, to say the least. I'll refrain from going on a huge rant, but I was surprised by the box, the art that's on it. It's AI generated art. I know a lot of people don't care about it. Some people even think it's cool. But for the most part, AI art has stayed online. But this is the first time I've seen this in person. And here it is. Here's what the box looks like. Some people like it. I really hate it. And this really ticks me off that I had to see this. The rest of the box is very plain. It's probably the same AI generated stuff going around all around the box. And they have this dumb phrase on the side of the box as well. Velcro, you open it up. They have writing here, probably written with ChatGPT or something. And then you have another cardboard insert on the inside with more of that AI generated art. I've already taken everything out. Another weird thing that's included with the box is this slip of paper that says, "Hope the 3D model file can bring you a better experience." Then it has a link to a Google Drive folder. I don't know what the freak is in that link, but I do not trust a link from a third-party toy manufacturer. That's enough about the box. Let's get this out of here. First thing, we'll go over the accessories. Nothing too impressive with the accessories, but I did already remove them and put them in this bag. Each figure has 2 of these swords. Has some detail on it. It's okay. It's not really that interesting. They each have a bow, which is pretty lame in my opinion. Not a fan of bows or archery, anything like that. Unless it's a crossbow, that's different. And again, the design is okay. It's not super impressive or anything. They each come with one staff, has a moon shape on the end of it. I guess this thing is okay. I could have used some color right there in the center. And then a quiver to hold the arrows. This attaches to the back, and the arrows are not removable, but it's got decent paint on it. And then we get several hands. So there's 2 gripping hands, which are on the figures right now. So we have flat hands, a different kind of relaxed hand, fists, then a pointing, and then of course the ubiquitous peace sign hands. And each figure comes with several pouches. And again, the attachments for these pouches are pretty crappy. They don't stay on. Overall, just not a very good design. The paintwork is okay, just not very functional. And along with the pouches, you get this water canteen, maybe some kind of potion or something. Has the same kind of attachment. So then there's a banana included. I don't know why. I don't understand why or what the point is. I guess it's kind of a useful accessory, but it's just one banana. It's not like a bundle of bananas. Each figure includes 2 bare feet, which is pretty useful for customizing. And each figure has 2 head sculpts. One head sculpt is this face here, and the other one is basically the same face with some paint, with some face paint. I prefer the one without the face paint. And then the last thing is each figure has 3 different hair pieces that you can swap onto the head. It's kind of medium length, kind of a reddish hair. This blue hair with braids looks a little bit too out of place, so not really sure what they were going for with that. Then kind of a blondish, light brown hair. This one's pretty good as well. Swapping the hair is very easy. Pull it off, and I guess you can have a bald elf if you want. Just another option. And that's also cool for customizing. If you want to take hair from another figure, you're gonna have to cut out material to make room for the ears. But that is another option available to you if you want to customize like that. Now the last thing that it comes with is another torso. So there's 2 torsos, one that has underwear, another one that doesn't. And here's what the other torso looks like. So the upper portion of the torso is anatomically accurate, lower portion is not, thankfully. There's also like oil or wax residue on the hip joints. I don't know if it's toxic, whatever kind of oil that is that they're using. So I understand the inclusion of this for like customizing, but it's kind of unnecessary because the other torso option is perfectly fine for that anyways. They threw that accessory in there for the degenerates. But in any case, let's move on to the actual figures themselves. First thing I want to point out is the hair on this head sculpt broke off on mine. I wanted to see if there was a swivel, and just like I barely put any force and it came unglued. But the plus side of this is you can actually kind of articulate it. So before it broke, it was just stuck like that, but now I can reposition it and actually articulate it, so it's not a total loss. I actually see it as a positive, so I recommend breaking the hair to do that. The other skin tone version of this figure has a different color palette to the armor. It's like a white, more silvery color palette. This is a blue color palette with some turquoise thrown in there. So the armor is actually pretty cool, pretty flexible in some places, not so much the shoulder pads. And on one of mine actually broke, so this one right here, I had to glue it on. It's a pretty poor construction in my opinion. Kind of like there's a ball joint in there, but it's not really a ball joint. It's just like a cap on top of a peg. It allows some articulation, but especially with this hair sculpt, the hair gets in the way of the shoulder pads. Would have been better if they had an alternate shoulder pad or an option to remove the shoulder pads without having them break. So in my opinion, that's a negative. Yeah, the paint on the face it's okay. It's not that great. It's not as detailed as I would like it to be. Same thing with the skin shading. There is shading on some parts. And again, the skin tone, it's a pretty flat tone, pretty lifeless. They could have done a lot better on that. But I was pretty surprised at how sturdy the body is. I thought it was going to be like flimsy and thin, cheap feeling, but it's actually a decent quality. The articulation is lacking though in some parts. The head can look down, it can look up. The hair starts to come unattached though. There's no tilt and then swivel. The shoulder armor gets in the way of the swivel. They really messed up on the joint that they used here. It's just a hinge and a ball joint, and it's pretty much like a Marvel Legends style. I would have expected a dumbbell joint. That would have been the way to go, and it would have made head swaps a lot easier. So if you're a customizer, finding the proper head to put on here, it's going to be hard without doing some severe customizing to the neck joint. Ball peg going into the shoulder with a cap on it, McFarlane style butterfly joint. Not really a butterfly joint, it's just a ball joint. You get that far back, that far forward. You can come across the chest that far. It's not too bad, could have been a little bit better. And then back, and then you can also shift up and down. Bicep swivel, double joint elbows, no problem getting all that range. All the armor is a separate piece and removable. And then we have so the wrist swivels and hinges. Torso, another very lacking part here, and the armor doesn't get in the way. The armor is not hindering the articulation here. It's just poorly designed, very reminiscent of Marvel Legends. So moving forward, the upper torso, it is on a dumbbell joint. Moving forward, nothing. Moving backward, you get a lot more. So very similar to Marvel Legends. Huge mistake. With most third-party figures, you expect a lot more articulation from them, and it doesn't really swivel that well. It kind of grinds against the lower torso. And then tilt. You get some tilt out of that. We'll come to the hips. Not even a full kick, and I'll show you why later when I take the armor off. The legs go off to the side when you bring them up. There's a little bit of swivel at the hip joint, not a whole lot. And then you have to be careful of the leg coming off, because like I said, there's that oil on there that really makes the hip joint slippery. So it does pop off pretty easily sometimes. Double joint knee, the armor does get in the way a little bit there. Ankles are okay. They go forward that far. It does like to pop out pretty easily though. And then forward, not so much. It's going to pop out a lot. Toe hinge, kind of useful, but just not the strongest joint. So that's everything for articulation. Like I said, not very impressive. In the places that it could be impressive, it's not, and it just fails. If that doesn't bother you, then go ahead and buy it. So now I'm going to take the armor off one of the figures and show you some more problems that I have with it. The torso comes off very easily. There's a little bit of that oil on that joint there as well. And you just remove the armor like this. Like I mentioned before, this is the body with the covering on it. The skirt connects to the lower back here, so you're going to have to pop that out first. Then you have to take the boots off, put the torso back on, put on the bare feet, And when all of that's off, this is what you're left with. And the articulation is not that much different, except the leg articulation, you can get a lot deeper bend. The knees there without the armor getting in the way. If you just wanted to buy this figure for the body, for customs, I wouldn't recommend it. It's not worth it. The body's not worth it. The accessories aren't worth that price just for the body. And the problem with the legs come up that far and then they kick out. And that comes down to the sculpt of the legs and the hips. And there's like this weird shading in the hip area. I don't think that's very accurate. Legs are kind of weirdly sculpted. They made the legs big where they shouldn't have been big. So the legs could have been a little bit more slimmer. That would have helped with the articulation. And then I'll show you how the pouches fit. So I'm guessing you're supposed to put the hook through these belt loops here, and that's it. You know, it doesn't fall off or anything. You're supposed to put a sword through it or something. That's when it becomes a problem. It just doesn't look right. You guys let me know what you think. There's the bottle or potion or whatever. Honestly, I don't really care for those attachments. Then there's a hole on the upper back here where you're supposed to plug this in. So I guess it looks kind of cool, you know, holding the bow and then having the arrows, but it's kind of missing an important part about it. There's no arrow to put in the bow to shoot. There's no loose arrow. There's no extra arrow to, you know, put it in a pose like that. So they kind of missed the most important part of having an archer, which is being able to shoot arrows. Maybe that's what the banana's for, because you can put it in there. Now let's get into some size comparisons and then different ways that you can customize this figure. Here it is next to Marvel Legends Captain America. Like I said, taller than Marvel Legends. Here it is next to G.I. Joe Duke. He looks even shorter. And this is what impressed me. Here it is next to He-Man. He-Man is a 7-inch figure. It pretty much comes up to 7-inch. And this is a little bit below 7 inches, but still in the 7-inch scale. So I'm actually pretty pleased with this kind of scale. And here it is next to a female Masterverse character. So it's actually taller than the Sorceress here. Here it is next to a Savage Crucible figure. Pretty happy with that scaling as well. There's another Savage Crucible figure. Here it is next to a 5-inch Motu figure. Here it is next to Marvel Legends Scar. And I bought this figure to be like an orc or something in the Motu universe. And here's a Lightning Collection figure. So once again, another fantasy figure. Pretty decent scale as well. And here's the Boss Fight Studio Skeleton, which is a lot shorter. So if you want a skeleton figure to fit in with this figure, you'll have to find a bigger one. Probably the Storm Collectibles one would be better. Here it is next to SH Figuarts Gojo. Here it is next to Jada Toys Ken. Last but not least, here it is next to Hulk Hogan. So now in terms of customizing, it is pretty limited, especially when it comes to head sculpts. Like I said, most head sculpts aren't going to fit. First of all, Marvel Legends heads don't work on this neck. There's not enough room in the head unless you wanted to Dremel out like a lot of plastic to make it fit. You also can't put the elf heads on the Marvel Legends bodies. Not enough room in the socket. First thing I'm trying is putting on some pants or leggings. And this honestly looks pretty cool. I actually prefer the way this looks. And also because the skirt armor is very short. Definitely going to stain the plastic. The plastic is prone to paint transfer and paint scuffing. Alternate Torso has some of that from the armor. Both of them actually have that. So that's a real problem that you got to look out for. Alright, so I threw a shirt on there. It looks a little bit more like medieval. Then I threw a cape on there. I'm just coming up with random stuff. Kind of wish the armor was a different color though, like if it was black or red. Obviously you can paint that if you wanted to. Let me know what you guys think. And of course you can put regular clothes on the figure. So this is more of a urban style outfit with shoes. And these are from 5K Toys. I don't remember what the manufacturer is. So that's not too bad, but again in terms of heads, not really sure what's actually going to fit on there. There's the original head on there. It's not too bad, just kind of weird that that's an elf dressed like this. Can't find any head that would fit on it. Not even McFarlane. McFarlane doesn't work. Mattel obviously doesn't work. For customizers, that really hurts this figure, I think. You'd have to do a lot more work to actually put a head on there. That problem could have been solved if they just went with a dumbbell joint for the neck. In terms of other pieces of armor you can put on it, I'm going to try to put a Savage Crucible. That doesn't work either. It just doesn't fit. It's too big. Of course, they can hold weapons from other kinds of figures. Here it is with a Savage Crucible weapon. So that's pretty cool. Way better looking than the weapons that came with the figure. Most accessories from Sparrow Toys are too big for the hands on these figures. So something that would work better is there's a boss fight sword. So that works out pretty well. And here's an axe from Super Action Stuff. And it's actually kind of heavy for the hand. It just kind of, the wrist is not strong enough to hold it up. Alright, you guys get it. You can do a lot of different things with it, but there are some limitations to what you can do. So that's it for the review. Those are all my thoughts, but I'm pretty satisfied with how they look next to some of the other fantasy figures in my collection. You know, they scale pretty well with He-Man figures and Savage Crucible figures. You know, it's cool adding like a different faction to the collection. And another third party, these Mantis figures. These kinds of figures coexist in the same world, same fantasy world. They're just like different creatures, different races, different factions, all coexisting within the Motu universe. So I'm actually pretty happy with how all these figures look next to each other. They just could have been a lot better. But in any case, that's everything that I wanted to say about these figures. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you have these figures, let me know what you think about them. Let me know what you think about this review. So that's it. I'll see you in the next one.